Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 4. In this week's discussion, we were talking about thesis statements, introductions, and body of paragraphs, as well as conclusions. As part of our discussion, we were asked to pick one of the chapters and do the exercises at the end of the chapter. So I ended up deciding to do chapter 10s, which is based off of theses. That's a word. So it initially said out of, 3 different papers you've ever written, pick out your thesis statements. So my 3 thesis statements are, and these are papers that I wrote before, so they might not make any sense to any of you. But anyway, if the locals of Hood River want to start posting signage along the waterfront, this would greatly affect the city's economy. And then number 2 was, I would argue that Martin Luther King's A Letter to Birmingham Jail is the strongest piece of persuasive writing. And then 3 is, I made a critical decision to return to school last year to further my education. So those were my 3 thesis statements that I made in 3 different papers that I wrote. And then it asked me to basically pick one of my theses and then kind of pick out in one of the papers where I made paragraphs and what those paragraph topics were. So I picked the one about Martin Luther King, and basically I had broken it down into 4 different paragraphs. And it was me discussing the study of lyric essay writing, and also the idea of and I don't know if we have done this in this class or if anyone's heard of these, but basically persuasive writing relies on a couple of different things called pathos, logos, and there's a third one as well, but it's kind of skipping my brain. So basically, it was me describing how Martin Luther King wrote a lyrical essay using both pathos and logos, just to make more sense when I read these to you. So my topic sentences for my paragraphs were, he has a wonderful way of using personal anecdotes to show the injustice he has seen throughout the years. And that was basically the topic of my paragraph. And then I broke it down into the different things that he had experienced through his childhood all the way into adulthood, to where he was finally a public figure and making public speeches. So that was the topic of my first paragraph. And then the second paragraph was about how he relied on pathos and logos, and me giving examples throughout the speech or through the letter of instances that he used pathos and examples of how he used logos, and how that helped my professor understand that I understood what those concepts meant. And then the third paragraph that I had was talking about in what ways, there's a rhetorical essay, which is kind of, it's like an essay that you write on hard fact research, and you basically argue both points equally in the paper, but at some point you pick a side, but you're supposed to give hard factual data from each side so that the reader doesn't really know what side you're on until they get to the conclusion. At least that's how we wrote them in this previous class that I wrote. And then talking about a lyrical essay, which is also a research-based paper, but incorporates personal experience into it. So my last paragraph, sorry, that was getting a little wordy. This essay is definitely in lyrical format, where he goes back and forth from personal experience to research-based facts to drive his points home. So then it talks about a paper that I might want to write, and I'm going into the psych program here at George Fox. So my topic, I wanted to write about PTSD. And the claim would be, people who experience PTSD must go to therapy, for it's the only, form of treatment. Evidence, I would do psychology statistics through multiple resources. So I would go into resources and find things that back up that claim. And then the thesis would be, in this essay, I would like to basically kind of incorporate my personal story and how PTSD victims have also struggled to, find reasons why therapy is so important. But through the research, I would want to prove the claim that it is really the only cure and the only form of, not medication, but the only form of treatment that somebody who has PTSD would use to cure that. So that is my discussion. And sorry this got so wordy and lengthy. I hope you guys all have a good week.